not really helping the city of Atherton very much. So I think that's a burden that would be on people that is just too much. So we do not support the abandonment approach, but we do support the approach if it could allow that different people could select. If you wanted to accept the abandoned property and build on that, or do whatever fits, then we would be very supportive of that. We would like people to, we at 49 Parker support other people that want to make changes to their property. And if that would give a flexibility, has been mentioned here by several others, we would be very supportive. We would be supportive of that. But if it just comes down to abandonment with large property taxes for everybody, we think it's very unfair for all the residents. It would be helpful to us in our case, so we wouldn't have to do the expense of moving the fence, but it would not be fair to others who don't want that, and therefore we would not support it.
Thank you. Okay. Any additional comments on this item? Please step up.
Can you hear me all right? My emphysema is killing me.
The microphone picks your recording, I apologize. Thank you, John.
Luke Aquinas, 96 McBain Avenue. There's already a case in precedent that you folks may not recall. Emily Avenue was theoretically owned by Sacred Heart School way back in the early years. The town of Atherton, Menlo College and Menlo School agreed to put a cul-de-sac on McBain Avenue that originally ran to El Camino Real. In so doing, the town and the school closed off 14 parcels of land that were on McBain Avenue and Howard Way. If the law allowed, Sacred Heart could prevent anyone on those two streets from driving on their street. For a period of time, once a year, the school would close off Emily Avenue, in that way preserving their right as the owner of Emily. However, I believe by taking that action, that there are somewhere federal and state regulations that do not allow them to do that. Eventually, then coming back to the story, Sacred Heart stopped putting up that one-year obstacle. They also have, over the many years, stopped paying for any improvements on that street, which in my opinion gives up their right of ownership. But by the same token, they claim ownership from the roadway to the property line, that is where people put up their fences and so forth. And I believe that that is an illegal act. I don't know, Councilman, whether you were the attorney at the time, but this issue was brought up for resolution between the town of Atherton and Sacred Heart School. I would like to see that process continued, and I would like to see that Sacred Heart, with all due respect that I have for them, that they do not own any piece of property on Emily Avenue other than what is on their side of Emily. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you, Luke. Any other public comments on this item? Seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public comments, bring it back to the City Council. Councilman Whitmer, any comments?
I know that there wasn't a formal survey. I guess there was a survey. There was some survey documentation that I guess was forwarded, at least to myself. I don't know if other council members got it. The way I could read it, of course, there were two packets. There was a series of very supportive people of the survey saying abandon it, because I guess the question was abandoned or not abandoned. And But when you go through it, it looked like it was a lot of people that weren't necessarily living on the street, and then there was a second pack of a lot of people that did live on the street. Most people identified the sawtooth approach, or I think there were 7 people that said they supported, I may be wrong with my count, supported the abandonment, and the rest of the people were kind of on the fence, didn't respond. So probably would have been good to get a formal input from the people. I think that's one of the things that when we continued this that we were really looking for was a formal survey that the town would have conducted or sponsored to get that, as opposed to one of the residents, which thank you very much for that. But we need to get the better data out. I'm also interested in understanding a little bit more about this sawtooth bill. I guess there's been a couple comments on the sawtooth and something about San Carlos. Is that something that we could?
2 comments. Number 1, ever since Brown versus Board of Education in 1956, where the blacks were told it was okay to keep them separate but equal, I don't take what other cities do as gospel. I did my research today. I don't believe Ms. McNerney is an attorney.
I do have a JD, my friend.
You have a JD, but you can't say you're an attorney unless
No.
you're a California lawyer, and you're not.
I am not, but I'm
And
just.
so, all I can say is I did my research today.
Okay.
And I believe, look, a lot of what I do is gray, not black and white. I'm having trouble contacting San Carlos or anybody else. It doesn't mean that their research is any better or worse than anybody else's. I think you have a problem with it, and I think staff tried to point that out. What's that?
I can also respond when you're done.
Okay, I think the problem is, if you look at the concept of what is the right of way for, why did we take this right away from the property owners? We did it so that we could ultimately put a roadway or some other utility or something like that in the right of way. If we don't need it, if it truly is surplus, the law says you should abandon it back. Now, it's hard for me to look at you and say, you can make a finding and say, it's okay on parcels 1 and 2, but not 3, 4 yes, 5, 6 no. I mean, I don't think you could make that finding as in terms of, because the finding you have to make is that it's no longer needed. It either is or it isn't, and I think it's going to have to be uniform, which is what my research discovered today. Now, if somebody else has a very creative way, perhaps they're a charter city or something, or they feel like they can ignore what the state says the law is, I'm fine with that. But we're not a charter city, and I don't think we're going to be able to do it because it doesn't make sense.
No, I just wanted to ask the question. It would seem to be somewhat new information, and I wasn't questioning whether you had done any research or not. I'm sure you had, and it's very well founded, but I just wanted to understand if there was anything new that could have been there. Lisa, you?
Yeah, I've processed the abandonment request for the city of San Carlos, and we've taken a look at limited sections of the right-of-way, but never what city attorney described as a sawtooth approach, where you skip properties. So it could be you've looked at 5 properties and not abandoned the entire road segment, because they're much longer road segments, but looked at small segments, but they would never kind of skip property over.
Okay.
And I did say in my introductory comments, I believe you can do that. You can say one side of the street, or you can say 1/2 the street, because we don't need that part anymore. I don't think you can do the gap tooth approach, because that then flies in the face of the whole concept of abandonment being based on you no longer need the property.
Right, okay, thank you. Also on the encroachment, which at one time we discussed, and then staff's recommendation was to, let's just do this cleanly. With the encroachment, then there could be a consideration then for changing the setbacks?
That would have to be a zoning change, that would end up going back to the planning commission. But yeah, you could change the overlay district again, much like you did in the past, to increase the floor area ratio and decrease the front yard setback. And that would effectively give them the ability to build closer to the street.
And that would be done on you do the zoning for the whole area, and then people would take advantage of it or not take advantage of it on their own.
Right, but it would have to go through the planning commission up to the city council.
Okay. That's my questions.
Thank you, Councilman Whitmer. Vice Mayor DeGolia. Councilwoman Lewis.
So, I've walked Parker, I've met with residents. It is a unique community. It's a very lovely, unique community. I pray for peace on Parker.
We all do.
Truly do. I was one of the council members in 2010 who saw the inequities of some of their floor area and height limits, and did a presentation and convinced council to do the overlay district, which essentially increased the ability to develop the property. And for a while, there was peace on Parker for several years. And I don't know why. I think that the encroachment issues of that Parker has evolved over time. For instance, 16 years ago, a resident did this, and then another resident did that. And because there was room to do it, and nobody seemed to mind at all. And to me, that is probably the better way to go, because some residents will want to kind of encroach into the public right-of-way. And if we can have a permit process so that Mr. Bechtel can keep his fence, you can get an encroachment permit, it's be legal, and you can do your fence out there and your plantings and beautify your home that way without having to pay the additional, I have no idea if it's $1 or if it's $1,000 more a year, or maybe it's more than that. We don't know, and the assessor will not tell us. Then you have that flexibility. You still do. And your neighbor next door doesn't want to build out into the encroachment, and to force him or her to abandon, to have the town force some property on them, that they would pay a property tax fee every year going forward, not just 1 year, going forward, when they don't want that. I think that's kind of unfair. I don't have a good sense. I tried to keep a tally of who's opposed and who's not, and but I don't know the majority.
Excuse me, there is a paper that I gave to the town manager, and those are signatures of people on the street who are opposed.
Okay, so because I think that we did get some surveys and some with that, I think there were like 7 or so.
She just turned that in just now.
Oh,
Teresa.
okay, so that's different than what I
Yes.
have. Okay.
We haven't received that yet.
Okay, and so we haven't really received that. So, I think that you can accomplish the same thing that you want to accomplish, and the flexibility that you would have to do what you want in the right-of-way by doing the encroachment process, because that way, and it would give everybody the sawtooth effect, because your neighbor may not want it, and you may, and I just think that's fair, more fair. But I'm really praying for peace on Parker at some stage, at some near future date, so.
Very near future. Vice Mayor DeGolia.
Well, I think the comment that we pray for peace on Parker is a good comment. Staff has spent an enormous amount of time on this block, and all of you who live on the block have suffered through it. And I hear the different concerns that people have. This is an issue where we are put into a quasi-judicial role. where we have to balance the interests of different people. I find it really impossible to agree when there's a majority or close to majority of people on the block that don't want a uniform abandonment. I find it very hard to force a property tax on people who don't perceive they're getting any benefit from it and wouldn't use that abandonment to a benefit for them. So I find that very difficult. In the absence of the political problem of what do you do when you have a property which was designed for something at the city level that was never followed through on, which I think is the source of the problem here. It's very difficult to address it after the fact. But in the absence of the problem, the issue that the city attorney raises, which is we don't have a use for this right of way, we should walk away from it, is the right decision. But it forces a tax increase on people that see that they get no benefit from that decision. And I don't find it possible to make that judgment. If we could do what I would like to do, I would like to offer the people the option of abandoning now or in the future. Because I think that when this property changes hands, when you sell your property, your buyer is likely to want the additional 900 square feet that would have come with abandonment. Why not? But I don't find that it's a fair thing for us to force that on you as a proclamation. The one issue that I have is that we don't really know. I know that you've accumulated, Linda, a bunch of information from different people. In fact, you've done an assessment of all 21 properties on the block. And I respect that, and it's very helpful to have that information. From the town's perspective, from my perspective sitting up here, I need to get that privately. I need the town to send a letter to each residence and say, what do you want to do? Do you want to have us abandon the entire strip? Do you want us to agree to encroachment permits this doesn't mean whatever somebody has put in the right-of-way is going to stay there. The town is, our building department is going to look at each single one of those issues and make a judgment about it and enter into an encroachment permit where for whatever fence or rocks or whatever planting might be there that would be acceptable. And some people may not want anything and want to do like you suggested, which is that it's unfair to allow encroachment when others haven't encroached. But I need to know the poll, and I think that poll could show us that there's a side of the street that wants abandonment, a side of the street that doesn't, or there's a portion of the street that wants abandonment. If there's 21 houses, there's 10 or 11 on each side of the street. If there's 5 in a row that want abandonment, then maybe we can do that and you don't have this sawtooth problem. But we need the information to be able to make a really informed decision, and this affects all of your lives. So I don't want to feel pushed into this and make a hasty decision. I want to respect that I don't want to force a tax on somebody that doesn't see that they're going to get a benefit from it. I just find that abhorrent.
Yeah.
Thank you, Vice Mayor DeGolia. We're all praying for peace. And we do want it to happen. And we also, as you've heard, but really do also believe that we have to develop a process that we're establishing some information. There was a lot of really good information or questions that came up when people came up to the podium. And I think that some of those questions, we need to look into some answers. So I think that's part of one of our responsibilities, because that also can affect how we make decisions down the road. I know that there were some comments related to emergency services vehicles and so on and so forth, fire engines in particular, not police cars, chief. And so I think that we have a responsibility to check into that information to make sure that certain things we're complying with. I think that we should survey the residents and from us, mailed to us, mailed back to us, and, nothing against anybody, but not all 5 go to one residence or all 10 to one residence. They'll go to each individual people with a signature requesting information. I think the town manager is very qualified to come up with questions. Let's find out officially and still do our due diligence on our part to find out what else. And the city attorney has kept us in check. And Lisa, thank you for doing some work for St. Carlos and giving us some information related to that. But we have some options, and we just want peace. And we want to reduce the amount of resources that are going in your direction to that street for some things that have been in your roadways. We've heard 16 years, but yet now we have a complaint to do something about it. It's reactive work versus proactive work, so we.
Sorry. It wasn't a comment.
Yeah, I was in a flow. Nail my flow. So with that being said, we do have a direction that I think that, again, I just hope, when this is all done, it's got to. It's got to end, and the healing's got to begin. And like it or not, we have to come up with an answer and a solution that is reasonable for as many people. Some people aren't going to like it, some people will love it.
So with that, Mr. Mayor, maybe I
Please.
can summarize what the direction is basically to send a certified letter
Please.
to each individual resident on the street, property owner on the street, ask them if they would like or favor abandonment or encroachment. All the other issues that you mentioned, this is a valid public street, it has a valid right of way, there's no issue with the fire going up and down the street. Parallel parking is not, on-street parallel parking is not something that's allowed pretty much anywhere in Atherton that I'm aware of. It usually has to be off-street parking. Even with the abandonment of the right-of-way, there is still right-of-way to accommodate off-street parking. So we will look into those issues, and if anything does pop, we'll let you know.
So if you could, please, in the same, I'm sorry, while we're sending the survey, can you provide information related to all the things that members have asked about and put it in and saying, these are the responses to all the questions that potentially of concern, so that while you're reading the survey, you can see that there's no issues, if that's the case, after you've looked into it. Please.
I agree with that. A sentence or two of the consequences of each
Yep.
Sure.
And
decision, so
I
they
just-
understand the implications.
just really fully explain what the encroachment permit process would be like and allow the resident to do, because
That's evolving. If you recall, when we talked about it, we were talking about amending the encroachment permit process to accommodate the bike ped articles in a more formalized agreement, a plot plan by the residents. That's what we're working on now.
Right.
right.
So I don't want
Too much detail because it could change.
to, could change.
Can't
That's-
imagine there's a bike path down.
No,
Parker.
what I'm suggesting is on Parker.
Sorry, Parker. You don't get it.
What I'm suggesting is right now, the requirements are you gotta be 6 feet back before you can put rocks.
A rock
You got
is-
6
yeah.
inches between the rock and the paved surface, so there's standards now. But we wanna evolve those standards to allow residents to do more things within the right of way,
Right,
but we have to change the standards to do that.
right. But like for the people on Parker, like, I guess my sense is that the encroachment permit process would accomplish pretty much the same thing as the abandonment would, pretty much.
With the exception of the zoning changes.
Well, right. But, I mean, as far as putting stuff in there, right?
Yeah, I would
like
argue that
fence,
what they have out there now.
Right.
With the exception of rocks being close to the right of way
Right.
through the encroachment
Would be
permit
a
process, we
no-brainer.
could probably.
That's what I think, like,
No big structures.
There's-
no, I mean,
there's some
there's,
asphalt.
Yeah.
there's some, planters. Can we let this one resident,
If I let you speak, that means I'm gonna have to allow everybody else to speak. Are you willing to do it?
Absolutely.
Then speak.
I think people, since you addressed me.
But you do have to come up.
You have to come up to the podium.
I'm sorry, since I used you as an example.
Sorry.
I'm so sorry.
Sorry.
Oh,
You're on the clock.
I appreciate you
Pointing
pointing at me, but I, in the spirit of harmony in our street, I would move our fence and we'd go through, if that would be something that would be helpful today. I feel bad that there are some people who felt that we were taking advantage of the rules. We didn't really know we were doing that. So if I could do that today in the spirit of helping everybody feel good about living on the street, I would sign up for that in a minute. Now, if we want us to go through the encroachment process, we would do that, but I'm ready, I stand ready to mend the fences, if you will, by starting to agree to do that. So that's all I want to pass off. The other comment is, the survey does need to have some estimate of the property tax impact. And I know San Mateo won't tell you what it is, but there's got to be something in there to make a judgment about the cost.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good point.
So you can equal the time.
Yeah, just real quick, I was just gonna mention that the city attorney mentioned that that property was originally the property owner's property, but then they took it because of the fact that they were gonna go ahead and put the.
No, it's still a property owner's.
What a right-of-way is a right that is taken away or given by the property owner to us to do something on. But you
Correct.
still own the property under it. We just have a right that's superior to that to use the surface of that property or even under the property for utilities for a given purpose.
To restrict it.
That's correct, and is there any way to draft that resolution so that when you put it back through some type of abandonment, that wouldn't trigger a property tax? In other words, you're saying this is their property anyway, we're just gonna go ahead and give that
You
portion up.
haven't been paying property
Yeah,
taxes.
you haven't been.
No, I
paying-
understand that, I'm just trying to say that if you're gonna go ahead and abandon it and you use certain language, saying we're not giving the property back, it's their property anyway, we're gonna allow something to some other portion of that resolution so it doesn't trigger a property tax increase. That's what-
Unfortunately, the assessors have attorneys that know what a right-of-way is, and when we abandon the right-of-way under the law, it says, we're just taking away our use of your property, now it's yours, totally again, free and clear without our right across it. And what the assessor then does automatically is they say, okay, that square footage, we view as an improvement on your property, you've just, received a gift from the town, and now you get to pay taxes on it, which I think is somewhat
Becomes a
irresponsible.
benefit.
But theoretically, in the right point in time, you actually could argue that that property is worth less than they assessed it. And that's the problem with us telling you what the value of the assessment might be. It could be $900 a year, could be they owe you $500 a year.
All right.
Correct, that was a good point, that's what I was just bringing up.
Thank you. And Bill,
Sorry about that.
I will be very quick.
Thank you.
There is a misimpression about peace on Parker Avenue. This is a very peaceful, wonderful street, including those people who have rocks in the right of way. This is a misimpression.
Thank you. Maybe I should
Prayers are
say,
answered.
I apologize, maybe I should say it's noisy here.
But not from us.
Okay.
Not from us.
It's just noisy here. Thank you.
Hi, I guess I'd like to just make one clear statement that in no way did I represent that I was a practicing attorney in California. You understand the importance of that.
Thank you. Don't think anybody was, but we're good. Anybody else? You have that same time frame. Because he's gonna make me abide by it.
Michael Benton, as a person on the other side of most of these issues from Linda, I also want to say this unpeaceful Parker Avenue is not what we experience on the street.
Right.
It might look like that here, but that just isn't the case.
And I will retract it. It's not noisy on Parker, it's noisy here. Thank you. Any other person that wants that 48 seconds? Thank you. We're going to go ahead and close the public comments on this.
So are we gonna continue this then?
We will continue this item, and please, Vice Mayor Golia has something to say.
So, in the survey, I think that we need to give people the ability to say that if they could have abandonment for their parcel, they would abandon. Because if you force people that they're only going to support abandonment if it's for everyone, that's a totally different position. I want to be able to see if there are if there's a stretch of houses where the individuals would all support abandonment, without forcing it on everybody. Because maybe there's a section where we could do what they did in St. Carlos. And that's the only way, we've got to have it worded so we
We'll,
can
we'll
find
we'll
that
answer
out.
the question, send a certified letter, ask for the survey back by a date certain.
Great.
The one thing we will not be able to do is provide detailed tax information.
That's right.
Yeah, that's,
really important.
and I will say, on the assessor's point, he legally can't do it. Until you change, an appraiser will lose his license by making an opinion that it's a long, drawn-out process. Until you change it, they don't want to work on it. I'm sorry, these are our tax dollars. Until you actually change title or change use of an area, they don't want to work on it. So we actually got more information out of the county assessor's office than we probably most cities would get, but we were pretty persistent because we want to solve the problem. And so we got an answer, but it's really not $1 for each parcel, because each one of you, one side of the street may have a different, because the other side of the street has 2 utilities going through that particular section. So therefore, the value of that site may be minimal to nothing. The value of the other side may be double, maybe it is the $900 amount, but we don't know. And that will have, as soon as somebody does it, then we'll know, and then everybody would actually know the answer. At least one side of the street will. Then somebody on the other side of the street will have to do it to determine the final outcome. So I apologize, but the assessor will not do it. Okay, you've got the direction on that. We're going to go ahead and close that item and move on to the next one. And thank everybody from Parker for attending. I know it's not easy coming here on Wednesday night in the hour.
We'll see you in 30 days.
Since you're not using my survey,
I don't have it.
Part of the record now.
We'll make a copy and send it back.
Yeah, it has to stay here because you submitted it.
It went to him and,
But there was more than one copy.
no.
No, this is the sign.
This is one. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on from Parker to item number 19, authorize the release and request for the proposal for environmental document preparation and geotech engineering services for the Civic Center Master Plan. Lisa Costas.
I don't have anything to add to the staff report, be happy to answer any questions.
Beautiful, any questions for Lisa? I see no questions for Lisa. We're going to go ahead and, so we have no questions for Lisa. We're going to go ahead and open up public comments on item number 19. Any public comments for item number 19? Seeing no comments for item number 19, we're going to go ahead and close public comments. We're bringing it back to the council. Any final comments from council?
I'll just make it that the Civic Center Advisory Committee has been working through these various requests for proposals, and staff has done a really good job, and I think we should just, I'm in support of approving this at this point.
Thank you, Councilman Willis. Vice Mayor Foley, any comments? Councilman Whitmer, any comments?
No, I thought it was an excellent report, and I'm all in favor.
Beautiful, thank you.
So,
Can I?
oh, public?
No, we already.
You did.
Who's running this meeting? I just want to make sure, I'm just checking. All right, so we're going to go ahead and, I think that staff has done an excellent job. And I think that we're going to make this quick, so we're going to bring it back to the council. Do we have a motion on the deck?
So moved.
Second.
Any more discussion? Seeing no more discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Moving on to item number 20 in the staff, let's see here, I'm going to read it. It's on a new page. Civic Center Project Master Plan RFP. Oh, Mike.
Yes, first let me apologize, because I do have a few comments on this one. This item requests the City Council approval to solicit proposals from qualified professionals to perform construction management services for the Civic Center project. The primary purpose of this solicitation is to provide specialized consultants to work on the town's behalf with specific expertise in project scheduling, construction cost estimating, and overseeing and managing structural design consultants and contractors. Staff does have 2 changes that it would like to make to the RFP that Council received. The first one is we realized we had an omission, and that omission is in the, when we were describing scope of services during the construction phase. The omission was we also needed to include that we want the consultant to perform and document daily construction observations and quality control. So we would be adding that to the proposal, the RP that goes out.
Are you talking about page, the design phase, key responsibilities,
Page 6.
Yes.
page 6 of it? In our binder, it's page 6. It's
Okay.
the second page of the overview,
What's
background,
the-
scope of work.
Is it D in construction?
Yes, it is. It's
D,
it's
okay.
D.
So you're
Oh,
adding a
it's
couple
in D.
bullets. Okay, yeah, because
We're
all
adding
the stuff
one-
used by hand.
Yes, we're adding one bullet to include perform and document daily construction observations and quality control. And the other change staff recommends is to the schedule for the RFP being due. Currently, the RFP shows the proposals are due on June 5th, which only provides 2 weeks of response. And staff is recommending that that is extended for 2 weeks to provide adequate time for proposers to provide a comprehensive, detailed proposal, which is what we're asking for,
So the June 19th,
June 18th.
June 18th.
Does that change the estimated time that would come back to council, which currently is at the July council meeting?
Well, we'd have to change the interviews from June 16th to 18th to something like June 20th to
I understand
22nd or
that this is the
something.
July count. Right now, the estimate is that it'll come back, the recommendation will come back to us
I
at the
think
July
that-
council
I
meeting.
think that would give us enough time.
Yes, by extending the date
Mhm.
to June 18th, we are still coming to council on July 16th for a recommendation to award.
And so the interviews would be scheduled when, Mike?
Sometime between June 25th and July 3rd, sometime in that time period.
June 5th to July 3rd.
Would that be-
Now admittedly, that's still rather quick, and there could be delays, and people
Right.
might not want to meet. and-
All right. Okay. Any other questions for staff?
Just a clarification, the geotechnical engineering services estimate, as I saw it, was that it would come back to council in August. Is that right?
July.
I believe it's August
It
maybe.
said August. So, okay, so this one will come back in July and I won't come back in August.
Yes.
That's correct. What it is.
Environmental will proceed independently,
I
and
understand
it's
that.
hopeful that the project management will be in advance of the architectural service.
So that seems helpful.
I think it'd be
Can you ask Mike, when you're changing these dates and you